Welcome to Supporting Law Enforcement Agencies Building Hardy and Resilient Officers from the Inside Out. I'm Dr. Janine Elias, and I will be your facilitator for today's event. Over the past 5 years, there have been significant changes taking place all across the world, but more specifically in the public sector, and even more specifically when we're looking at law enforcement. And the pressures facing today's departments are unlike anything the industry has seen before, and they're not going away. And law enforcement has faced what some might call a perfect storm with public scrutiny, political pressure, staffing crisis, and the psychological weight of policing in a polarized society. So, very often, what we're seeing is, and what we've been seeing over the past 5 years, is a mass exodus of officers retiring. And with them goes decades of institutional knowledge and potential mentorship for new officers coming on board. And so they're missing that valuable guidance. And how that is impacting the agency and the departments is recruitment and retention is also experiencing a crisis. So new officers are unprepared for the psychological demands of the job, and they may leave within 3 years, draining departments of talent and morale. And part of this is tied to the lack of mentorship and the lack of insights, that decades of institutional knowledge that has been leaving with retirement. Add to that extreme stress. Uh, there's extreme stress responses, there's ongoing crisis, there's ongoing stress, there's high levels of post-traumatic stress disorder, burnout, substance abuse, and relationship challenges, both within the job and outside the job in the officer's personal life. And there are systems in place to provide support, but they're not enough. And they're not being accessed, and we're going to talk more about that. They're being accessed but not as utilized. The utilization is low, and we want to change that. And then add to that the political and public pressure with unprecedented scrutiny and shifting public expectations, really eroding morale and decision making. And part of what's happening is that there's so many external forces trying to tell officers how they should do their job without any understanding of the nature of the job itself and the many challenges that they face. So these are some of the significant challenges that we've been seeing over the past 5 years with officers. So today in this event, what we're going to cover is, by the time you finish hanging out with me today, you'll be able to describe what the resiliency training gap is. You'll be able to list the 4 biggest challenges impacting law enforcement agencies, discuss the benefits of bringing coaching services into law enforcement agencies. And I'm going to introduce you to our nationwide pilot program to support law enforcement agencies in building hardy and resilient officers and infrastructure. So let's take a moment and talk about the challenges, and or go a little bit deeper into the challenges that we were just discussing the officers are taking or experiencing. And we see this in every industry across the world, anywhere, that an industry must evolve in order to succeed. There's a wonderful book written by Jim Collins, Good to Great and Built to Last, where he studied what was it that makes an organization thrive over time, over decades, and sometimes even centuries. And so what we're looking at here is that an organization and an industry must evolve. And we're really seeing this with the changes that are taking place with AI. But we're not going to talk about AI. I'm just using that as an example. So when we're looking at this, law enforcement is no different. The evolution is going to take place. It needs to take place. But the question that we're asking here is that evolution going to be led from within, or is it going to be imposed from the outside? And so what I have here that I want to present to you is the solution for it to be led from within. And so, like I said, in every industry we see this. The medicine evolves, education has to evolve, military evolves, and every high stakes, high stress profession has had to adapt to new research, new realities, and new expectations. And law enforcement is no exception. In fact, the evolution is already underway. So we're here to assist with that process And what we find is that change led by officers that are supported by coaches who understand the job creates genuine culture transformation, building trust, ownership, and lasting pride in the profession. So these are some of the things that we're going to talk about and how to do that in an industry and in a culture that has top-down mandates from outside the profession and that creates compliance and stresses the day-to-day performance of the officers. So as we look at this, I want to talk about coaching and really what coaching is, because very often most folks don't truly understand what coaching is. Because you can go into any business anywhere across the country and you will hear a senior leader tell a mid-level or frontline leader to coach their followers on some task. And what's taking place isn't actually coaching. And the private sector has really gotten a hold of this and an understanding of this. And coaching is a standard benefit in the private sector. And so my question here is, why not law enforcement? In the private sector, coaching is a perk. And if someone in the C-suite or high-level executive, sometimes they'll take a position that provides coaching as part of the package where they have their own executive coach over a position that doesn't, because they understand the value of coaching. In fact, every industry that coaching has been applied has seen significant results across the board, regardless of the industry. And not somebody just randomly saying coach somebody, but someone with formally trained professional association certified coaches coming in and providing that service. And so what we want to do is we want to bring this into law enforcement. So we want to help law enforcement attract top talent. We want to help them dramatically improve retention. We want to have a proactive organization that builds resiliency and hardiness and puts in place, embedded within the institution, systems to support stress management. Notice I say stress management, not stress reduction. This is something that we'll talk about as we move along. And really, all of these things will significantly impact in a positive way community relations and create many of the improvements that people have been looking to see, both outside law enforcement and within law enforcement. But in order to do that, there's something that we need to talk about that's discussed regularly in the private sector, but is not often discussed in the public sector. And that's the transfer of training. So what does that actually mean? What is transfer of training? So transfer of training is you go, you take a training, and then you utilize that training in your day-to-day activities on the job. That's transfer of training. And what we have seen, Harvard did a research project looking at how much organizations and industries, both private and public sector, pay for training and development of their folks. And what they discovered was $365 billion is spent a year globally on training and development. That's $1 billion a day, because properly trained people function better, have better outcomes in the work that they're doing, experience less stress, have better interactions with their customer base or the community when we're looking at law enforcement. So training is essential for safety and for protocols and to follow laws and the whole slew of things. But the reality is what Harvard discovered, and what I've known as an educator for decades, only 10% of that training is actually transferring into the workplace. So out of $365 billion, $1 billion a day, only 10% of that's actually transferring into the workplace. In the US, we spend $164 billion a year in training. And so why is there only a 10% return on investment, or ROI? Well, I'm going to tell you. So when you're looking at when we are looking at training, there are three things that hinder the transfer of training. So what you're going to see is law enforcement agencies invest in training, and many of the trainings that law enforcement agencies take is imposed on them. Again, external forces telling them they need to know these things that may or may not be relevant to their job, but that's, again, another conversation. There are very important trainings that are very relevant to their job, and even that is lacking outcomes, specifically the resiliency training. So the reason isn't the training itself, it's the gap between what the officers learn and what the system actually supports them in implementing. And so this is what the resiliency training gap is. It is a chronic failure to transfer training into the day-to-day reality of the job. And there are three system barriers that are responsible for this. So one is leadership. And here's the interesting thing. I learned a long time ago, many decades ago, in the work that I was doing, that if I didn't work with leaders, if I went into an organization and tried to create some type of shift or cultural shift or reform or innovation or change in any way, nothing took place unless I got senior leaders on board. And the reason for that is leadership often blocks change unintentionally. So they see the need for change or a shift or an improvement in the production or outcome of whatever the organization or industry creates. They send their folks to training. They want people to have all the support and training they need. But what happens is when they go to a training, whether it's external or internal, they come back to business as usual when the team comes back from the training and they're in the field or at the job. And that's because without genuine buy-in, leadership unknowingly becomes a barrier. They actually bottleneck the process. And they don't realize that sustaining change is their responsibility too. And that many of the trainings that are provided, they need to go through some of them, and specifically this particular training that we're talking about with the pilot program. And then there's that whole piece where officers are taking trainings and just checking a box, and they're not even attempting the transfer because they go through this process. They have to take this training. It's a protocol requirement, and they check that box. And because I work at a state college, in addition to the other work that I do, because I just enjoy the process, I teach a few classes here and there at the college. I have to take those trainings too. And very often I don't necessarily apply anything, but some of the information is very interesting, but it's not necessarily applied in my day-to-day teaching experiences. So everybody in the public sector has some of those check the box training. This is not one of them. So the other thing that prevents the transfer of training is the system itself does not support the new learning or the new implementation. And this can be so much worse in the public sector than the private sector, because the private sector, you've got a privately owned company, the owner or the leaders see there's a problem, throw money at the situation, and can create the change to come forth more quickly. Public sector is a lot harder to push that dial, but it doesn't mean that it can't be done. And so the system doesn't support. So lack of funding, department-wide resources, the structural follow-through means that training initiatives stall before they take root. And good intentions don't survive a system that isn't built to reinforce them. And that also goes to mid-level leaders who absolutely need to take this training as well. So then the other key piece that's missing, and all of this comes from not only the review that Harvard did, but Walter Reed did a training or a review of their resiliency training that supports this as well, and we're going to talk more about that, is the lack of coaching. So there's no coaching to bridge the gap, that transfer of training gap. So there are times when internal coaches are most effective, and then there are times when external coaches are essential. And most departments lack both. So without formally trained coaches available, there is no one to bridge that training gap and support real-world application. So where coaching comes in is it's not when you're going to hit a bump when you try to transfer your training, or not if, it's when. And there's always going to be a block. But if you have a formally trained coach, whether they're an internal coach or external coach, that can help you talk through, walk through, brainstorm, be a soundboard and a thought partner to assist the individuals in setting meaningful goals, both for the individual and within the department, to create the change that they're looking for. And so a single day of training will never close this gap. And that's exactly why we built the Resiliency Leader and Emotional Recovery Coach certification, emotional recovery for crisis response coach certification, to go deeper, stay longer, and create conditions for lasting change. So let's talk a little bit about resilience training. Resilience training is common for first responders and military organizations. So unfortunately, there is a gap between the training and its application into day-to-day experiences on the job. And it's not that the institutions and that the leaders and that everybody's not trying to support folks, because they are. The programs exist, but they're not taking hold or taking hold as quickly or as deeply, and there's a variety of reasons for that. So one of them is, despite that widespread adoption of resilience training programs across law enforcement and military organizations, the transfer of training into daily practices remains critically low. So officers receive the training, but systems don't support them in applying it. And Walter Reed in 2022 did a review of the resiliency program that the U.S. military started using in 2009. And their recommendations after reviewing that program was to shift that program away from the existing model toward a leadership and coaching approach to close that gap between the training and the real world application. And this program is that solution. So after 13 years, the military's own research confirmed what we already knew, that resilience training without coaching doesn't stick. So what I would like to invite you to do is partner with us to build resilient law enforcement teams. So the Elias Institute of Professional Coaching invites you to become part of the most groundbreaking officer wellness initiative in American law enforcement history. So, and this is with the Resiliency Leadership and Emotional Recovery for Crisis Response Coach certification. This is an 85-hour International Coach Federation approved level 1 coach training program. And the purpose, and so we're going to talk a little bit more about this, what this looks like, and what our intentions are of our pilot program. So this program is the gateway to law enforcement coaching. So we're inviting to this program. It is and I have more slides about this, but I tend to get ahead of myself, which you'll know and learn as we continue to work together, is that we are doing a pilot program over the next 24 months where we are putting 350 individuals through this level 1 ICF approved coach certification program. And so what that looks like is we're inviting 200 sworn officers, which will embed them within the departments, embed certified coaches into the department. And then we are also inviting retired officers, mental health professionals, and coaches who want to make lasting impact in law enforcement to take this next step. So whether you're looking to work as an external coach or a consultant or both, this certification gives you specialized knowledge, proven tools, and practical framework to do it with confidence and credibility. So the program equips you to serve officers effectively, earn the trust of departments, and bring the kind of informed outside perspective that drives real change from within. So remember, one of the things that I said earlier, sometimes in an organization, and this is both private or public sector, sometimes you want an internal coach to help with whatever processes you're doing, and other times you need an external coach. You need a fresh perspective. You need someone who sees things outside of the box in a different way and can bring in unique ideas. And so that's where the external coach comes in. So in order to foster a resilient department, what we have put together and the way this program is set up, and we're not just fostering a resilient department, but we're fostering resiliency within the officers and within the institution itself. So here are some of the main characteristics that we are imparting from this particular training program. So we have a resiliency leadership piece. So the program is called Resiliency Leadership and Emotional Recovery for Crisis Response. Remember when we talked about those 3 things that impact transfer of training, and leadership is like a key factor of whether or not this training is actually going to transfer. So this is why we've added the resiliency leadership component. And I say resiliency leadership, not resilient leader, for a very specific reason. So a resilient leader is an individual who has effective coping skills to navigate high stress environments. Resiliency leadership is a leader that has been trained that can teach these skills to others and develop systematic changes to support resiliency throughout the agency. And so there are very specific things that we teach in this process of resiliency leadership to help individuals within the department and external coaches who are supporting those individuals within the department to be able to make this, to impart this change and really close that resiliency training gap. The other piece is emotional recovery. So this equips officers with practical evidence-based tools to recognize, manage, and reduce the negative impact of high stress environments and ongoing exposure to trauma. This is a non-clinical trauma reduction component that is focused in cognitive processing and cognitive behavioral interventions that can assist in using keystone habits to develop transformation and have things that can be little simple things that can be applied on a daily basis, daily, weekly, monthly basis within the work that the officers are doing to navigate, manage stress, mitigate the negative outcomes of ongoing exposure. In addition, communication skills to sharpen active listening, critical conversation skills, the ability to communicate clearly under pressure with peers, supervisors, and the public. And so for the coaches that are being trained in this, they will be trained to support, or you will be trained to support the officers in implementing these components. And going through this program for both the officers and the coaches, external coaches, mental health professionals, retired officers that want to support, also there's a key component of self-awareness and emotional intelligence. So individuals who understand their triggers, their strengths, and blind spots make better, more effective decisions, especially in times of crisis, increases de-escalation more effectively, and to lead, be a leader with greater empathy. The other thing we want to do is we want to foster leadership within all the ranks of the department. And so again, Walter Reed confirmed that shifting to a leadership and coaching approach is the key to closing the resiliency training gap in high stress organizations and institutions. So as I had mentioned, I'm Dr. Janine Elias. Here's a little bit about my background. I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about myself. I think it's important for you to understand where I come from, where my education is, on my alphabet soup that is that follows my name. And there's a lot more alphabet soup than what I put up there. I just have my coaching credentials up there. I'm a subject matter expert. I have a master's degree in clinical psychology, doctorate in educational leadership, grief recovery specialist, certified hardiness resiliency gauge master trainer, and we'll talk about that later. And I want to tell you how I came to be doing this work with my diverse background. In 2004, the trajectory of my career shifted, significantly shifted, with a phone call from my cousin, Sergeant Glenn Elias. He called me in the middle of the night from his returning from a second tour in Iraq, and he called me crying, and I was startled and surprised. His third friend had died that month by suicide, and so he pleaded with me to help. He insisted that I promise. He would not get off the phone with me unless I promised. So that promise that I made with love to him to help find a solution completely changed the course of my career. And shortly after that phone call, I was introduced by my cousin to some folks at the Center for Deployment Psychology in the Department of Defense. I went to the very first Center for Deployment Psychology training in 2006, and I went to another one a decade later. And then I really started looking at building the framework of leadership and coaching, and really looking at what is the underlying premise that needs to take place to create that change, to create that shift. I even wrote my dissertation on bringing transformational leadership into senior level positions with formal coach training. And This was prior to the time when Walter Reed did the training to identify what the challenge was. So I was identifying the framework on one end, and then major government agencies were looking at the framework on another end, and it just came together like perfect puzzle pieces. And then in 2001, because I had been doing this work with the military and with organizations looking at work-related stress, burnout, transfer of training, and how to bring in change initiatives, I had some folks reach out to me from New Jersey in 2001, and I worked with the New Jersey Police Department, and we did a pilot program really looking at providing leadership training and group coaching within the agency. And that ongoing research led to the Resiliency Leadership and Emotional Recovery for Crisis Response Coach certification. And then to continue to kind of give you an idea where this program came from. So I started this program a decade ago, and it was commissioned by a civilian military organization to address real-world crisis response and emotional recovery gaps. And that started out as a 60-hour coach certification program specifically to help with non-clinical trauma reduction and formal coaching for mental health and first responder professionals in a emergent situation. And then I later added the leadership piece, realizing that it was essential for the transfer of training, and then added some specialization for law enforcement agencies and first responders, which then expanded and extended the time frame of the training from 60 hours to 85 hours. And then fast forward to where we are today. I did another pilot program, or actually a beta program, with a very small group of folks with LAPD. And it brought critical insights to the surface, and the relentless demands of shift work, the strain of being stretched thin by daily operational duties, and the compounding weight of political influence, budget cuts, and the interagency barriers. When politics inhibit collaboration, morale suffers, stressors multiply, and trauma accumulates, which really informed how this program is structured and how we'll be training external folks and mental health professionals to support law enforcement, and then how we'll be providing services for embedding coaches within the department. And add to that, I also joined Blue Line Therapy Dogs, which is located in Southern California, with my dog Jack. And here you see a picture of Jack here. And he has passed his AKC certifications, and we've been going out into the field to support first responders through the healing power of therapy animals. And in that process, I've also gained a lot of insights, and just by sitting back and being quiet and just letting folks pet Jack and just listening to some of their experiences, really seeing what's happening and what type of support is really needed to help our first responders, those who run into danger, to keep us safe. And that's really what this work is all about. So when we are looking at resiliency, leadership, and emotional recovery for crisis response, we are looking at an 85-hour International Coach Federation approved level 1 coach certification program built for first responders and professionals who support them. And it comes with the 60 hours of foundational coaching training, 25 hours of specialization. It is an ICF level approved training program, which is the gold standard of professional coaching. It comes with 10 hours of mentor coaching for the individuals going through the program, 7 hours of group, and 3 one-on-one coaching sessions. And there are 50 pilot seats nationwide for the different categories. So there are 50 seats for mental health professionals, 50 seats for retired officers who would like to continue to support their peers on the job, and then for coaches, external coaches and consultants who want to come in and support the officers and all of the things that we spoke about. And then there's 200 positions for sworn officers, where we'll be embedding certified coaches within the department. And so there are 3 integrated modules, from the foundational coaching skills through advanced crisis response application, equipping you to serve law enforcement enforcement officers with precision and confidence. And so you see, these are the 3 modules. It tells you how many hours that we're doing for each module. There's also, these are some of the courses that you'll be experiencing when you go through the program. And there's on-demand videos, there's pre and post assessments, there are practicums, there's coaching feedback, there's all sorts of super cool things that go with the program. But this is really important to note. We are taking a systems approach to build resilience. And this is what's missing. This is why we are not getting the results, the level of stress management, the level of hardiness and resiliency that we really want to see with our first responders. So true organizational resilience cannot be built by one person or one role or one program, one day program. So this pilot program is designed as a full system intervention, and external coaches are a critical component to that ecosystem because it really brings a fresh approach. However, those external coaches need specialized expertise training and how to navigate this population, how to support this population, how to provide services that will help instead of hinder law enforcement, individuals, and the agency. And so when every layer of the system is trained and aligned from the officer on the street to the external professional coach, resilience becomes self-sustaining across the entire department. So we're very, very excited about this. This is the first time in law enforcement history. Nothing like this has ever been attempted until now. For the first time, formally trained ICF certified coaches will be embedded directly into the law enforcement agencies, not as consultants or outsiders, but leaders within the ranks. And so this pilot program is not an experiment. It's not a fly-by-night, oh, let's see if this works. This is a movement. This is an opportunity for transformation. So we have an unprecedented scope. We have 350 seats, 85 hours of training, officers, commanders, mental health professionals, and community leaders trained together. Nothing has ever been attempted at this scale in law enforcement or any public agency. ICF certified at the command level. For the first time, law enforcement leaders will hold internationally recognized coaching credentials, bringing executive development standards into the precinct and the field. And so data, and here's something that's really exciting and really is something that I'm so excited to be part of, and I really want to invite you to be part of. So the data that we gather from this program, as we do pre and post assessments, as we look at what's working, what's not working, and make shifts and course corrections and adjustments in the program and how we're doing it and how we're rolling it out and who needs it and what level of leadership is it best suited for, this pilot program will generate the first ever database on embedded certified coaches in law enforcement, influencing funding, legislation, and department design for decades to come. And I think it's important to say that history doesn't remember those who watched, it remembers those who moved first. And at that note, I'm inviting you to join us and to fill out an application. So the ripple effect of resilience coaching in law enforcement extends far beyond the precinct walls. When the first responder is well, their family is well. When their family is well, their community is well. And so this program is designed, it is a systems approach. So not only will it create the transfer of training, not just for our training, but it will help set up the internal system of the department to transfer all of the other trainings that the officer is doing as well, to increase that transfer of training from 10% to a higher level. What level? We don't know yet, but we will. And what we expect to see are stronger families, healthier departments, safer communities, and modeling courage. And when I say modeling courage, when a first responder seeks support, they signal to their peers that strength includes asking for help. And that can be challenging for first responders because they're the ones, when something happens, the rest of us are running from it and they're running toward it to keep us safe, to protect us. And we need to support them in keeping their wellness strong and keeping them cared for and supported. So who is this program built for? This particular piece that we're talking about, I have another video for the sworn officers. This is for the external support, not for the sworn officers, but the sworn officers can watch this because it's kind of unpacking it and letting them see what our intention is to how to support them. So this program, what we're talking about here, is a pilot program designed for professionals who are ready to step into one of the most meaningful and underserved coaching markets available. This is not for the passive observer. It is for those who see the gap and are prepared to close it. You have to be ready to put boots on the ground, roll your sleeves up. This is hard work. And we need to push past barriers. We're going into government agencies. Law enforcement is a public sector institution, and there's a lot of barriers, and we are going to not bust them down, we're going to melt them. We're going to find ways to support them. So we're looking for external coaches, professionals interested in becoming certified coaches with a unique specialization, and executive or health and wellness coaches who want to expand their practice into law enforcement and public safety. Mental health professionals that are licensed clinicians and wellness professionals who want to add non-clinical coaching tools and formal ICF certification to their existing practice to diversify the work that they're doing. And mental health professionals can often experience burnout and overwhelm and trauma from working with the mental health population that they work with, and to diversify their practice to work with higher functioning clients and bring coaching in can really be a wonderful addition to the work that they're doing. And also another piece to consider is that law enforcement, first responders, military personnel are more responsive to coaching services than they are to mental health services. And one of the reasons we want mental health professionals trained in this modality is that they can, when appropriate, bring in the clinical practice and have the coaching skills to assist with more effective transformation, and in a way that officers are more open to the experience. And then we have peer support and wellness coordinators, so leaders who design and implement resilience strategies within the department, peer support programs within or alongside law enforcement agencies. Really, this training will be extremely helpful for them. And retired officers pursuing coaching, veterans of the profession who want to continue contributing, offering coaching and consulting services backed by lived experience and formal certification. So again, this program is an 85-hour intensive, academically rigorous, and emotionally engaging. So participants must come ready to commit fully and manage the time and investment. So we only want people who are very serious in this about attending this program, and this is a population that you really want to work with, that you're dedicated and committed. This is a highly competitive pilot program. There are only 350 seats nationwide. So we don't want somebody taking up a seat that they're not going to, halfway through the program, I'm not sure if this is for me, and off they go, when they took the seat of somebody who's dedicated and very serious about working with this population and really supporting the population. So this program is designed to fit your schedule without sacrificing depth or rigor, whether you prefer live virtual training sessions or full immersion in-person training. The program meets you where you are. So we have on-demand video series, we have live interactive sessions, we have peer and mentor coaching, structured breakout sessions, one-on-one peer interactions, networking, 10 hours of dedicated mentor coaching as you build professional coaching mastery. And there's a lot more to what this program has than what we can talk about here today, and you can look at that at the website. And so you can take this program in an accelerated format, so you can take it within 2 months, where there are 2 4-day intensives plus an 8-hour on-demand video series. And this is delivered in person, and we do this for groups of 10 or more for the maximum impact and minimum time. And then if you want to take it slower and you don't want to spend 4 days 1 month and then 4 days the following month of that intensive, and you want to do it over a longer period of time, we have a program that is completely online. It meets 2.5 hours a week for 6 months or 22 weeks. And it's ideal for professionals managing ongoing client commitments, or if you're in another part of the country and you don't want to travel, or we're not in your area and an online process is better for you. So we have all of these things available for you. Now, full immersion in the in-person program is 2 4-day intensives, and it is held over 2 months with 8 hours of on-demand video content reviewed between events. So you would watch 2 hours before, 2 of the 8 hours before the event, and then over that 4 weeks, you would watch another 6 hours between those 2 events. And then you have cohort specific sessions. So classes are intentionally broken up by individuals. So this is really important. We're not just throwing everybody together. When we're doing it for officers, we do them by rank. And when we're doing it for non-sworn officers, we're putting folks in cohorts. So mental health professionals, we're putting all mental health professionals together because they have different questions, they have different implementation, they have different needs of how they're going to support the officers. For retired officers, they don't need to hear about the culture of law enforcement because they are part of the culture of law enforcement. So instead, we'll go deeper with them with resiliency leadership, stress management, and other things, and how to be a consultant. And then individuals who are that don't meet those categories that want to go into and support law enforcement agencies, we give them more of a cultural understanding of what law enforcement is, how to connect, how to interact, what is shift work, how is that impacting them, and so forth. So we have cohort specific sessions. This is both for the online programs and the in-person programs, and this is very important. And for groups of 10 or more, we will come to your city or state, and this is ideal for departments or groups supporting multiple participants simultaneously. Some of our East Coast folks, they have townships that are smaller, and so they might get 4 or 5 different townships together, and then we'll come in and provide training for their different agencies. So there's the fully immersive piece is really good for the sworn officers and folks who like that in-person component. And when individuals step away from daily demands to invest in yourself, they return as fundamentally different leaders. So the in-person piece can be very powerful. So these are the training dates that we have right now and what you can apply for, and we will have more dates coming as the year moves along. We have these going into the fall, but we will add some more in the fall. We're probably going to add some summer classes. We do have the summer event. This is an in-person accelerated event that's going to be here in Southern California, and the specific location is to be announced. And so these are some of the dates that you can participate in. And now, you are going to go through an International Coach Federation certification program that traditionally starts at $7,000 to go through this program. And anywhere you go for ICF programs, very often the other components that you need are not included with that base price, like the 10 hours of mentor coaching you need to get your certification, or the 5 professionally reviewed coaching sessions, and the assessments, and the done for you 12-week coaching protocol that you'll receive so that you can provide coaching services. We set it all up for you to help you fill your practice. We even have a bonus narrowing your niche and identifying your star quality. And this is really important to help you grow your business, fill your practice, connect with the agencies. We'll talk to you about how to do that, how to get funding for the work that you're doing. Participating in the pilot program, you get all of this and much more, and it is $2,000 off as a participant of the pilot program. And so we will need you to fill out some questionnaires and to give us feedback and to share with us your insights about the program as you experience this wonderful discount. Now, it's important to know that this discount is only going for the pilot program, and after the pilot program is rolled out, then the tuition is going to change. So this is an incredible opportunity that I really want to invite you to participate in. And so when you complete this program, you have 2 credentials from one program, and it is a career defining achievement. So you will come out with the Elias Institute of Professional Coaching certification as a resiliency leader and an emotional recovery for crisis response certified coach. And you will have everything that you need to sit for the International Coach Federation Associate Certified Coach program in order to become a certified coach through ICF. So how to apply? You want to apply early because it's based on the first come service. I'm losing the terminology, but you get where I'm going with that. So you want to apply early. You want to fill out your application, and you want to answer thoroughly. So there are a couple open-ended questions, and the reason that those open-ended questions are there is because we really want to make sure that you're the right fit for this program, and this program is the right fit for you. So really take your time and do give us more than a single few words or sentences or one sentence. I'd like to see several, at least 3 sentences when you fill out the application where you're at the open-ended questions to really think about thoughtfully why this is the right program for you and what you can bring to the program. And it's important that you demonstrate your dedication, and this is something that you're really interested in. This is not for folks who are voluntold or thinking, oh, maybe I want to do this. We're looking for people who are very committed. And then once your seat is confirmed, once you fill out the application and you go through the application committee and you're selected, and your tuition is paid for, then your seat is reserved. And so enrollment closes when seats are full, and there's no exceptions. There's not going to be extra folks added because we're doing a very specific pilot program before we roll out the main program. And so we're really looking at a certain amount of people in each industry and so forth. So enrollment is limited. The pilot program offers significant discounts from the industry standard, and you're part of, you will have the ability to the bragging rights to say that you went through the very first cohort. So as a final word, this is work that needs doing, and coaches who are ready to do it. And the bravest thing a first responder can do is ask for help. And the most courageous thing a coach can do is to be trained, credentialed, and ready when they do. So here you can call us, you can use this QR code, you can potentially, depending on where you found this video, because it's going to be in a lot of different places, you can come to the website, click on the link to apply to reserve your seat. So I look forward to talking to you soon, to reviewing your application, and to do this incredible work with you. It is an honor and privilege to spend this time with you, and I hope to see you at our next live event. Have a wonderful day.